Gus, I know we are about to start the podcast, but somehow the Snyder fans have been tipped off. They're pounding on my door. I've had to barricade myself in my bedroom. It's bad.
Do you think Snyder fans now are like Trump people? Like, it's been a little while now since the election's over. It's been a little while now since the Snyder Cut has officially been released, that now it's pretty quiet on their front. Has the passion gone out? That's how I feel about Trump's peoples. The passion's kind of gone out a little bit.
Which is good, because I was so sick of talking politics.
Yeah,
but
I haven't even heard from or about him in quite a while. It's been nice.
I know. Yeah. But no, now the Snyder fans are pushing to restore the Snyderverse, and they want more movies.
I think
and there's
that might
a little
happen,
call.
honestly.
Then they're also trying to get a director's cut of, is it Goyer who did Suicide Squad?
David Ayers.
Yeah. Yes. They're trying to get a
Goyer
cut
and
of
Ayers,
that.
attorney at law.
It's so bad. And that movie I don't think could be redeemed, so they should quit. Warner Brothers has already come out and said, we are not doing that. And Zack Snyder's Justice League finishes out the trilogy that he wanted to make, and that's that.
It's not just like Snyder had this studio interference and he got fired. He had like there's a bigger story to the reason why the release version is not the version he would have made. So of course it made sense that people were like, I want to see that version. But anybody else, just because it's a superhero movie, now we have to see the director's cut off of a Twitter handle campaign.
This whole thing is absolutely bonkers for the direction of things to come. Speaking of which, this is Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. I'm Justin.
I'm Aaron.
And we are talking about a movie that's technically not a sequel, but kind of is a sequel.
I think it's only not a sequel because they don't name it like it's a sequel, but it's totally a sequel.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that, sir. We're talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, the third Zack Snyder film in the DCEU, starting with Man of Steel, continuing with Batman vs. Superman, and finishing with this. Nothing else happened between Batman vs. Superman and this. But yeah, my first thought with these is these movies are titled wrong.
Yeah.
And I actually think they would have gotten more fan trust, more buy-in if they had simply changed the names. And I've thought of some real dingers. Have you thought of sequel names that
I've
work?
only thought of it in that Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice is a horrible name to saddle on anything. They should have called it, get this, Man of Steel 2. Right? I mean, he's in it just as much as Batman, if not more.
Oh, no.
Maybe more, right?
More. I am going to articulate over the course of these 90 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. No, that's a lie. Man of Steel, and then Superman 2, Batman's Revenge.
Yeah, okay.
And then Superman 3, The Return.
Yeah, there you go.
Because these movies are at their core about Superman.
How about Superman Lives?
Superman
that would
Lives
have been a good
as well.
One. You could have stole Kevin Smith's idea.
Actually, yeah, that would have been great. This movie does not earn the title Justice League, and actually throwing out the words Justice League for this make absolutely no sense, because it's just a group of people that are together under desperate measures to try and save the day desperately, which they can't do, and they have to literally Frankenstein a guy to save the day.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like after this movie, they should have all been together and been like, you know what? We should like make this official. We should like be a team, like a league of superheroes. And then that's where the name comes from for the next movie.
Well, see, sir, that wouldn't have been real enough.
No.
And that wouldn't have been dark enough.
It wouldn't have been timely enough, because this was rush released. Like all this was rush released, because when Marvel started their cinematic universe, it was like 2008. When did DC finally get on the ball? So like 13, I don't know.
Way later.
Yeah. So they were rush releasing all this. Okay. Marvel's like, we're gonna have at least five movies right before the Avengers. I think, around there, maybe just 4.
4 or 5.
Yeah, but they're like, we need 2, and one of them's going to be extra long just to get us to Justice League, and that's just too much. It's too quick.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're talking Zack Snyder's Justice League, and we're going to talk about the previous 2 movies, but we're not going to really deep dive today. This is more of a casual chat between 2 friends discussing a movie. Please watch these movies before you tune in if you want to understand everything, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Oh, I want to say right away so that we don't get doxxed online, I liked this movie. Did you like this movie?
I did like this movie as well.
Yeah, okay, so we like this movie. Let's just say that from the top.
Yeah.
But anytime you have a corporation as big as AT&T, and it might even just be phone companies, them buying media properties, like AT&T owns Warner Media, which owns HBO, which owns Zack Snyder's clones, which owns the streaming service that Zack Snyder's clone put this on. The decisions come from so far up in part of a different company that's only caring about the bottom line. It's hard for companies like this to have a cohesive strategy. So DC already didn't have a cohesive strategy before AT&T bought them. And I ran the numbers, stupid, simple numbers. They would need to have picked up like 4 million subscriptions to HBO, and probably less with their imaginary money, but in real money, it'd be like 4 million subscriptions to offset the cost of what they spent on this movie. And so that's like the bottom line number. Like, if they picked up 8 million, they might do stupid stuff more and give Zack Snyder an undeserved sequel. It's crazy. Just because AT&T only cares about the bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that it is the way you would imagine it to be, that there is a heartless corporation that's only run by the numbers heading all of these studios. But at the same time, I do think that it's not all doom and gloom, and that they do have some artistic trust. Because at the end of the day, you still have to hire somebody who you deem to be artistically worthy to make decisions. And you hope this person you hired, even though they're being artistic, they'll still bring in the bacon. And I think that's like where Christopher Nolan comes from, being hired by Warner Brothers. You know what I mean? Like, he's still an artist, and I think they still give him a lot of leeway. And I think Zack Snyder's a similar guy. And I think there's already a lot of trust that he's going to make money for us. We do need to kind of let him do what he wants to do to some degree.
You're absolutely right. Warner Brothers is one of the last studios that have their in-house directors. Christopher Nolan, right. We'll see if he stays with them, but Christopher Nolan's been pretty much only a Warner Brothers guy. Another notable is Clint Eastwood is an only Warner Brothers guy.
They got offices like on the lot. There's the Eastwood's office. There's Nolan's office. Yeah. Then they're their guy.
Yeah. And so they really do give creators they trust a lot more freedom. And this is where actually the story turned sour, because they were starting to turn on Zack Snyder. They brought in Whedon. They were worried about the negative reception, and Snyder hated it, and obviously terrible tragedy.
Well, now what came first? Because that's what I'm a little fuzzy on. Did he have his family tragedy, and then he started to... The way I remember it is that there was the family tragedy, which made it very difficult for him to work. And he decided to step away, and that's when Whedon was brought in to usher it to completion. And it was almost like he made Avengers work, so Snyder was like, I understand, Whedon's probably the best for this, but I don't know if any of that's true.
Whedon was brought in, I believe I'm correct, Whedon was brought in before Snyder stepped away to help with rewrites.
I see.
He was already bought by Warner Brothers and to work on DC projects, and so they just called him up and had him come over. And this did not gel well, from what I'm hearing, with Snyder. And I'm sure there's mutual respect there, so they wouldn't publicly talk trash. But
I think they knew their styles were very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
And let's just jump into this.
Well, I got more questions.
Okay, sorry.
And why is that? And why did they turn on him? And I don't know if turn's the right word, but I know what you mean in that they wanted to make it more Marvelized, is really what it seemed to me. The movies were dark Snyder's Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman were dark, and there wasn't a lot of jokes, and they just didn't feel like they were capturing the team superhero magic that Marvel has been so successful with. So I feel that's why they brought Whedon in, because he could Marvelize it for them. But they still made a ton of money. It's not like they were bombs. But I think critically they were getting nailed. And then I think social media is such a big thing, in that they were getting railed on social media about how horrible Batman and Superman was. So I think that is what made Warner Brothers, or DC or whoever, want to take stock of what they were actually making and being like, hey, can we be a little more like Marvel? That's how I took it. I don't know if that's true though.
I mean, I see this company as being nothing but reactionary. And I think the biggest part of this is, yes, they wanted Marvel. They wanted the job done. They picked Snyder to have the universe. And so they get Man of Steel, which was kind of pre-universe, but it's right there on the precipice. Cost about $250 million, made $668 million.
Yeah, it's on its way to $1 billion, I'm sure.
Batman
just in
versus
home video
Superman.
sales, since that was still popular. I think around that time they probably made a lot of money on it, right?
What is that, 2013?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still selling special edition Blu-rays and stuff.
True. Batman versus Superman, though, $300 million budget, box office $873 million. Now, with these budgets, that's always just the film production budget. The advertising budget is always separate, and that's always $1 billion, or not. You know what I mean? Not specifically $1 billion, but expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I never remember what it is, but if it's a $300 movie, they probably spend another $100 million on promotion. Would be my guess. Yeah. But still, that's $400 million, and they made 800 something.
I think you have to.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not good. It's good, but it's not getting to Marvel levels. They're not building up.
Well, it's because these movies reached $1 billion at some point. Maybe it was Avatar or whoever, but God, that's all they want anymore. They want billions of dollars, but it's a certain kind of movie. They don't expect every movie they make to make that kind of money. But when it comes to a superhero movie, they're like, ooh, we better hit that billion mark, which is, I don't know, rational, crazy. It's just not doable all the time.
All you have to do, if you're listening, DC executives, is make a movie where there is a cohesive story and decent acting. That's it.
Yeah. Again, if people knew how to make successful films, you would never have any bad movies. So it's just not that easy, People know how. It's hard. Depends on the movie.
The screenwriter of Batman versus Superman and Justice League has won an Oscar for screenwriting.
Nice. What did he win the Oscar for? Do you know?
Argo.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
But then he went on to write such classics as Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, that probably was a thankless job. I mean, let's be honest. Hey, you got to wrap all this up. Can you do it? He probably should have said no. Nobody can.
Yes, no thank you.
But he said yes. Nobody's fault but his own, I guess.
So I like this movie.
Yeah.
But I objectively have to call it a failure. What we have here, now that we've seen it, is a fleshed out version of the 2017 movie.
Yeah.
The story beats are pretty much the same, and there's enough fleshing out where it feels like a different movie, but it's still there. And so we get what Zack Snyder had in mind for Justice League, but not really. Because if we remember, they had tightened the leash on him for Justice League, and that he was going to be capped out at 2.5 hours max for his actual theatrical cut of Justice League. So he would have had to have trimmed this movie down to make it workable. And I think if you take anything away from this 4-hour cut, it starts to lose its narrative integrity.
Yeah, although I would say you could save maybe 3 minutes with the whole excising the Martian Manhunter. How about that? There's 3 minutes. I'll give you 3. That's all I know so far.
Yep. I'm with you. Even though originally I'm reading the hastily written Wikipedia for this, originally it was supposed to be Green Lantern, and that would have been cooler. Just 10 times cooler.
But he's not a shapeshifter. I don't know.
No.
We'll get to that point. I don't even know what to talk about with that.
I don't even know if we'll get to that point.
We got to get to that point.
So objectively, this movie, I don't think could work in a standard theatrical runtime. And so it's not a redo. It's not Snyder's actual director's cut. It's this big, long, self-indulgent thing that Zack Snyder was allowed to make so that Warner Brothers could make money.
Yeah. Isn't that like every movie, though? You just explained movie making for studios.
Well, yes. Yes, okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
A bunch of self-absorbed people with a story in their mind wanting to use studio money, promising them they'll make them $1 billion if you just let me tell my story and I'll feel cool about putting my name on it. That's filmmaking.
I'm wondering if Snyder's just done with Warner Brothers. His next work is on Netflix. And I'd actually he's going back to zombies. And before I do that,
that's right.
What are your thoughts on Zack Snyder?
I'm just going to start with Man of Steel. How about that? I'll take it back to the beginning for us.
I mean, you can go all the way back to Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want.
I really only knew 300. That's when we first discovered Zack Snyder. I think for a lot of people, definitely for me, before memes were memes, but it was memeable. It was like, we are Sparta, and then like the slow motion when he kicks that guy and he like falls in the pit or something like that. Like nobody'd seen anything like that. Like we got glimpses of things like that. Like the Matrix was doing the slow-mo, crazy camera moves and everything. But like it was something about 300 where we were all like, Jesus, look how bronzed those guys are. Look how in shape those guys are. This is a crazy movie. I don't even remember really liking it necessarily. I just kind of like tolerated it, but it definitely was memorable. And then along came Watchmen. So I was like totally into Zack Snyder. Like, Jesus, what is he going to do with this story? Who knew? And then that was a little bit cringy at times. I think he's like Michael Bay is kind of how it felt like to me. He could just handle big budget. Like, I don't even know how you do half the things he does as a filmmaker, like it's, how do you do these? I don't even know. It's not even my brain. That's what impresses me about him. I think he's a competent filmmaker, but he just, from Watchmen to Man of Steel and Batman and then on, he is all about large godlike spectacle that kind of takes a substance over, or it kind of takes a spectacle over substance approach to movies, and that's what kind of drives me crazy about him, like Michael Bay.
Actually, I've got one, and let's see if it hits for you.
Yeah.
The closest comparison to another director that I can think of is Tim Burton. It's a director with a distinct visual style where it doesn't matter what subject matter you give him. He's able to use his distinct style and make it something that you look at it and that's a Snyder movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I give him that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's pretty much all you can give Zack Snyder.
Yeah. So he just seemed like this guy. He just seemed like this muscle-bound idiot dude who just knew how to make sensational-looking movies, but it never came really with a story that grabbed me. And then Man of Steel, I actually kind of liked. Like, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, I know it angered some people about how Superman was being treated, but I was like, hey, this is his take on it. That's fine. It's his version of it. I don't mind.
Yeah. I really like Man of Steel. I think a lot of stuff is really well done. We talked about how we love the Avatar birds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That Jor-El rides.
Yeah, it was very creative, and I appreciated his take on it. But it bothered me at the end when it turned into this giant, like, world-destroying. Like, did he know what he was making? Like, did he realize that hundreds of thousands of people are dying? Of course,
17 9/11s.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne in the sequel, Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, which is a horrible title. He says thousands of people died, but I'm just like, no way. Like, that's $100,000 right there of people. All those buildings. So that's Snyder to me, is that he doesn't see the forest for the trees. I guess maybe it's like that saying, There's too much. There's too much destruction. You're letting the movie slip away from you for all this crazy spectacle that doesn't support the story you're trying to tell. And that was my issue with Man of Steel, but really just near the end. And I didn't care that he killed Zod. What were you gonna do? You got to kill that motherfucker. Like he's out of control. But Superman is definitely dangerous.
I have so many thoughts here.
Go.
And I mean, we'll touch back on Superman when we get back to Justice League. But yeah, I am sorry to report to everyone in the world, Henry Cavill is a bad Superman. He's bad take on it.
He's a perfect Snyder Superman. That's what I think is right. He's Snyder's version of Superman, and it's probably not an accurate Superman. But I think Cavill actually does it justice.
Yeah, right. He's not an accurate Superman, and his take really is what's missing from these movies. What we can't empathize properly with Superman because he's not a person. He actually plays it up as the alien.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to empathize with the people that he's saving. Like every person seems below him. And his callous disregard for life in Man of Steel really bothers me because they have this big fight in a city. Superman knows these people are dying all around him. Zod is literally after him, and Superman is deciding to stay in the city. He could fly to outer space and they could fight and he could kick him into the sun. Superman would do that because Superman would protect all life that he could.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a failure on Snyder's part as a director and the writer's part in that the Snyderverse, the whole universe, everybody there, Perry White, Lois Lane, everybody in these movies are trying to tell us how human Superman is and how much everybody loves him and how he's our protector. And yet Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman tells us none of that. Like we're being told how important he is to the world, but all we're seeing is this guy who has no regard and is constantly making mistakes that a lot of people are suffering property damage and everything from. Their lives are being lost.
This Superman is a sociopath. Like if they had done that where they had the conversation with Lois and Perry where they're like, Superman's our hero, it would go to Henry Cavill with his eyes on fire laughing maniacally.
I guess I would say to Snyder, like at the end of Man of Steel, I'll give you 2 buildings because it's cool to see buildings fall. I mean, in a movie setting, obviously it was horrifying with 9/11, but we're so many years past that it's like I only bring that up because could you imagine this movie? It would never come out like around that time. Like they could never show all this destruction, all these buildings falling.
They canceled
20
so
years
many
passed.
things.
Yeah, 15 years or whenever this movie came out. And maybe only 10. I don't know how many it was, 12 years or whatever. Yeah.
2013. So it was, wow, 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years later. And then now it's okay to watch buildings fall and people running and dust.
Ballsy, Zack Snyder.
How about
ballsy.
That? Yeah. Anyway, I'll give you 2 buildings is what I would have said. Because any more in that makes Superman look like he doesn't care about human life and all the pain that he's inflicting on Metropolis.
Well, throughout Man of Steel, we actually learn that it was Pa Kent himself, Kevin Costner, that taught Clark not to care about human life.
Yeah.
And he gave him the ultimate test, which was, hey, son, I'm about to die in this tornado. I know you want to save me, but I'm telling you not to.
It was a bit much. It was a little on the nose. And I don't know if it's good. Like Jonathan Kent is like Uncle Ben. He's that guy that's always like a good soul, and he's always there. I mean, I believe he's dead in the actual comics, but it took a while for him to die. He was around in the 80s.
Yeah,
I remember he was around in the 80s and maybe a little beyond there.
Yeah,
I could totally be wrong. I'm not as big a Superman knowledge as I am other comics.
I think he was sacrificed in the 90s when they killed everybody, but I bet you $5.
Yeah, because when they killed Superman, he was fighting.
He had a heart attack.
Yes, he was fighting in the afterlife, and he ran into his father, who was also dead. And they worked together to bring Superman back to life. I believe that's how that happened.
It's just like Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, but there was no happy ending.
Wow.
Oh.
Anyway, my point is that they kind of, and I'm fine with Kevin Costner's portrayal of him. I think that's cool. That's the way they wanted to take it. Again, all right, I'm good with that. But it just it made him wrong. Like he was basically wrong.
He was wrong.
And that's what Superman had to realize about his father. And I'm just like, well, they wouldn't do that to Uncle Ben. Like, they wouldn't, like, have a story sometime where Uncle Ben was like, turns out Uncle Ben was wrong this whole time. You know, like, you would not like that.
I mean, that's what they did in Spider-Man 3. I'm just saying. But no,
well,
Spider-Man
sort
2.
of, yeah.
But no, in Man of Steel, they set up this amazing dynamic where Clark Kent's technical stepfather is telling him to only save people if it's going to be good for you.
Yeah. Well, he's so scared for his son.
Yes.
That's what.
And you have to put yourself first, and you have to make sure that you're fine. And then he's got his real dad showing up all these years later and being like, no, you got to save everybody. You should be giving yourself over to these people. So they create this nice dynamic, and I think Clark's supposed to fit right in the middle.
Well, he realized he was wrong, but at the same time, I think he realized his father was right and that he wasn't ready, and he would know when he was ready. And that's basically what Pa Kent was trying to tell him, is that you're not ready now, and I fear you won't be for a long time, but you will know when you are ready.
If they had said
so he
that
finally
in the
realized.
movie,
yeah. Well, I think he said something like it, but not so clearly.
There's nothing wrong with making a movie for a wide audience. Yeah, just come on. Make it for more people. Anyway.
I have one connection to Man of Steel, personal connection, in that my first feature I made, and we were showing it in like 2011, I think, is when we premiered it. Anyway, it was somewhere in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And one of my actors who was in the movie, he played the brother of the lead character. He was in a couple scenes. And he was all like wishy-washy like the week before if he was going to be there or not. Because he's like, well, I'm working, I'm out of town. And then like literally like an hour before showtime, he texts me. He goes, I'm on my way right now. I'll be there in an hour. And I'm like, okay. He goes, I was out of state, but I'll be there. And I'm like, okay. So he comes to the show, and he's happy to watch the movie and everything. And we had a little party afterwards where people came and had some drinks, and he's all giddy, and he's like, I so wanted to tell you like this whole week what I've been doing, but I couldn't tell you. And I was like, what were you doing? And he's like, I was Henry Cavill's stand-in in the new Superman movie, and we were shooting it in Illinois. He goes, I was hanging out with Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. It was so cool. And I'm like, really? I'm like, did you get to wear the suit? And he's like, no, they wouldn't let me do that. But he looks like Henry Cavill. He's a big dude. He's really in good shape. And yeah, so he was Henry Cavill's stand-in, and that was his story about it. I was like, well, that's freaking awesome.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. So yeah, Superman helps commit 17 9/11s in Man of Steel.
That's what it looks like.
And we pick right up because, again, this is a knock that I consistently have with DC movies. I talked about it with Wonder Woman 1984. DC is really bad at, we have sequels, and then we have serialized storytelling.
Yeah. Where
you lay threads throughout these movies to tie them to the next movie, and it keeps people interested. These movies are literal direct sequels, one after another. They are proper sequels too. They have a beginning, totally. They have a bend, and it's a logical, complete thing. And that's what they shouldn't be. They should be a little more serialized. They should be a little more while you were watching last time, even though they do that here.
Well, this is why Marvel works, because they tell separate characters' stories that just happen to nicely connect. You know, at some point, they can always connect up with the other story, but they're not like indebted to the storytelling of the one before it.
That's exactly right, man.
But I'm not saying that could be wrong, because it could work. And frankly, the beginning of Batman versus Superman, I really like that, in that Bruce Wayne is immediately connected because his building's getting messed up and his people are dying, and all he sees is this alien, this very dangerous alien who probably should be on a leash or stopped in some way, because he's responsible. I know he's not the one that's like trying to hurt people, but he's not trying to stop Zod enough to the fact where he's allowing all this to happen. So Bruce Wayne is rightfully suspicious of this alien.
I'm going to say it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ben Affleck is a fantastic Batman.
He's good.
Love the job he did in these movies.
He's good, but I got to tell you, in Justice League, I feel like he just wasn't Batman that much. He was more Bruce Wayne than anything, and that's fine. You know, he was good as Bruce Wayne, but...
So it's very clear from Batman versus Superman that this Batman is based on The Dark Knight Returns.
Very clear.
Frank Miller comic series from the 80s, graphic novels from the 80s. And did you know there's a third sequel to those?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I had no clue. Like,
yeah,
I
so
need
it's
to
Dark
read
Knight
them.
Returns, Dark Knight Strikes Again, and it was the Dark Knight 3 something.
Yeah, something.
But he actually wrote the third part with Brian Azzarello, if you're familiar with him. Yeah, I believe that's who he wrote it with. So I think because the Dark Knight Strikes Again is although, have you read that in a long time, or have you ever read it?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, well, his art is just horrendous.
His art
so that's
has
one
definitely
thing.
changed.
It's like he's a little toddler drawing. I don't know how that happened. But his storytelling was rather silly, yet full of amazing ideas. I thought what he did in the story, like, he just had those wow things where you're just like, oh, God, what a great idea. Like what he did with the Atom or whatever, or something like that.
Yes, he can write an epic comic story. It's insane.
But people thought it was pretty silly, and I think that's why when he wanted to bring it back for a third, and they were like, all right, but you probably should work with a newer kid, who knows what he's doing when it comes to crime stories and stuff. So that's why you got Azzarello. That's just my guess, but yeah.
That's funny. So we've got Bruce Wayne that's older. Here's my question, and this is just nonsense. Do we have a situation where the Dark Knight had retired and he comes back?
I think I know what you're going to say, and I think that people who are familiar with The Dark Knight Returns keep saying he's that version. I think Snyder's very, like, on an aesthetic plane, he's very inspired by that story, and that's what he grabs from. But we're not. Ben Affleck isn't some 60-year-old man who retired and is coming back one last time. When you say he's an older Batman, he's just been doing it for 20 years. That's it. But he's still like in his 40s.
I only think he's supposed to be 57 in The Dark Knight Returns. I'm just saying. But no,
really, I
think
thought he was in his 60s, but maybe you could be right.
Zack Snyder does this thing where he has something in his movie that doesn't make any logical sense, and then he never addresses it, and he just leaves it there. And
like
so
what?
In Batman versus Superman, we have Superman, Clark Kent, who lives in Metropolis, who really wants to investigate this Batman character in Gotham.
Yeah.
And everybody in that room should just be like, where the hell have you been? He's been there for 20 years. He's old news. We don't care.
Oh, right.
But
and
they don't.
When he was at the party, when they first meet, Clark and Bruce and Diana Prince is there, and they're at that party with that Lex is giving his bizarre speech. Clark goes, "Who's that?" And then the guy's like, "Hey, you haven't been around long. That's Bruce Wayne." Come on. He would know who Bruce Wayne was. He's been Clark Kent for 2 years now, right? He's been working at the Daily Planet for 2 years. Oh, and secondly, Gotham City is apparently 100 yards away.
I know, they're on the bay.
Come on. It's Bruce Wayne. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, that's one of those things that we talk about, I've said this 1,000 times, where characters just do things that just are out of character in order to drive the plot forward, and it bothers me. And that's just one of those dumb things.
Can you name 2 billionaire owners of a company off the top of your head?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk.
Yes, those are the first 2 I thought of too.
Exactly.
But there's so many more we could say because people know the names of billionaire CEOs.
And if either of them walked into a party with dignitaries, I guarantee you nobody's going to be like, "Who's that?"
Yeah, I would know.
You'd be like, that must be that Bezos guy because he's bald and he stands
looks like
out.
Lex
And then there's
Luthor.
Elon Musk, who everybody knows him because he was on that podcast smoking pot, and everybody knows what his picture looks like. And he's got that weird name, Son. Like, you just know these things.
That guy who's in charge of like all of our future space travel. The pot smoking guy.
Right.
Which is
Unless you're telling me
ridiculous.
that Bruce Wayne is a dignitary, yes, but maybe he's not a famous dignitary. But that seems hard to believe when he's like Trumpish name is on the side of a building in Metropolis.
But anyway, Ben Affleck does a great job.
Yeah, I think he's a good Bruce Wayne, and I think he is a great Dark Knight Returns version of Batman. But I just don't think he gets a lot to do in Justice League, although it is pretty much his movie in Batman Superman, so that's cool for the most part.
Yeah, and Batman versus Superman does this crazy thing where it establishes a character and it allows him to just exist in the next movie without having to really explain a lot of what's going on with him.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's just telling this long form story over several movies instead of introducing 4 brand new characters in one movie and expecting you to care about them.
Well, another part of the thing that felt rushed is that in Batman Superman, he has a clear goal in that he witnessed the horror of the Superman Zod fight. So he wants to take down Superman. Yeah, this guy has got to be taken care of. He's a threat. If I have to kill him, that's fine. And I'm going to, like, Alfred, you were in this cave 24/7 working for me, building this, working on the suits, whatever. Yeah. And we're going to take this guy down. And then he immediately has his moral, well, that goes into another thing, but immediately he has his mind changed. And now he wants to, like, save his life and realizes how important he is. But it just didn't feel earned to me. And I think a lot of people felt the same way because of that whole Martha scene, you know?
Yeah, and the Martha thing, for the record, is fine, but they were just missed nailing it. Like, they didn't do enough to earn that segment. If they had built it up just a little more, it would have worked.
I mean, people are stuck on the whole, like, oh, because they have the same names, that why he's cool. And I'm like, no. It clearly showed him that Superman was human and that he cared. And I don't know. But the problem is that Bruce or Batman, I don't know what his moral compass is. He wants to save lives the way Superman apparently wants to save lives, but he's killing people left and right. You know, like, if you're a criminal and then he brands them, knowing that that's a death sentence in prison. Apparently, if you brand somebody, they die. And he also has no care about property damage and stuff like that. So I don't know. His moral compass is all over the place. So that's kind of why Batman and Superman may be Snyder's worst film, possibly. I don't know.
Yes, I completely agree with you what you're saying, and it kind of just reinforces Batman changes his mind about not wanting to kill Superman once he discovers not that Superman's human, but Superman's human. If Superman's human, that means he could also be a sociopath, just like me. Like,
yeah, maybe that's it. He's an ally, and we can both fuck shit up.
Because that seems to be all they're interested in. Because they almost commit 5 more 9/11s when Doomsday's fighting them at the end of that movie.
But to their credit, at least it's in Detroit, where there's not a lot of people anyways.
Yes, they did move them to a less populated area.
They just shot the whole thing. Like, a lot of that, like, they show the old Central Station building in Detroit. That's like, whenever you need to show, you need a place where there's a lot of destruction, just come to Detroit. So the whole Martha scene, I believe that was shot inside the old Central Station in Detroit, and you see the outside of it a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the whole Doomsday fight is pretty much Detroit, I believe. I could be wrong, but most of those things I could recognize.
How much time do you think passes between Batman versus Superman and Justice League?
I don't know. His body didn't seem too decomposed, Superman's body in the ground. So I'm going to say a couple months. I don't know, maybe a couple weeks.
I watched the Ultimate Edition of Batman versus Superman.
That was the only one available on HBO Max for some reason, so I watched that as well.
Did you like the tweaks where they bridged?
I couldn't remember the tweaks. That's why I wanted to watch the original version.
Oh. Well,
because this one didn't piss me off as much as when I first saw it. So then now I'm thinking that he kind of was able to fix some story problems with the Ultimate Edition.
Well, the Ultimate Edition is 3 hours long. Batman versus Superman was 2 hours and 30 minutes long. So there's
that's a good 30 minutes more of story.
He added at least 30, 40 minutes. So again, we have Zack Snyder not being able to concisely tell a story in the allotted runtime, and he has to make it big and bloated to tell this long, drawn-out history that should have been covered in 10 movies.
But I couldn't piece out what was added and what wasn't, though, because I hadn't seen the original in a while.
Well, one big thing that was added is the ending with Lex Luthor in the ship when they discover him.
I figured that was,
an image of the mother boxes and Steppenwolf appears, which, again, doesn't really make any sense. But they added that. They added something that made no sense.
Well, this was the beginning of Snyder adding things just to add things at the end of the movie that only comic fans know. Even my wife was like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "That's the bad guy from the Justice League movie." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and it's something they totally did just to help tie Justice League together with it. because they have. So Superman dies at the end of this movie.
Superman, Batman. He sacrifices
Superman,
himself while fighting Doomsday, who was a creature Lex Luthor created from the body of General Zod, who died by Superman's hand in the first movie, Man of Steel. They also introduced Wonder Woman. So the three, the Trinity, is now officially introduced. And then she went off and had her own movie in between Batman, Superman, and Justice League.
Did that come before Justice League?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize.
So she got hers at least, and then Justice League was shoehorned in to not only introduce Cyborg and the Flash and Aquaman, but also bring Superman back from the dead. So it already had a lot to do, and really, I don't know, maybe they should have just done that, but could they have done a Flash movie after Wonder Woman? And then you could have got Cyborg in that or somehow, or I don't know. The thing I liked about the new version of Justice League is that like Flash and Aquaman were becoming like this buddy team, which was kind of funny.
There's so many wonderful things to talk about with.
Anyway, should they have had another movie in between of one of these characters at least? Maybe Aquaman, and then you move into Justice League.
There could have been a whole movie about just bringing Superman back to life and how he has to get a team together to somehow bring him back to life.
But it made sense that the big team is in need of Superman's power. I think that makes sense. That he probably should have been resurrected in Justice League. I think that's good.
They could have had Cyborg fire a nuke at Steppenwolf. I feel like that should have logically happened before they tried bringing somebody back from the dead.
Well, that would go against what we both don't like, and that you can't just willy-nilly be firing off nuclear weapons and shit.
Well, no,
Cyborg, the destruction of everything else.
That's the point. Cyborg can control all electronics. They make a point in the movie of saying that he could launch the nuclear arsenal if he wanted. Right. Why did they even mention that when they're not going to have him shoot a nuclear arsenal at the greatest alien threat?
Well, you can't do that because you kill everybody around.
Well, they don't give a shit. Have you seen these movies?
Well, Cyborg does give a shit, is what I'm saying.
Yes, he does.
He's maybe the only one who does.
And the Flash. The Flash gives.
Well, they all do, but I mean, someone of that power level, because he's powerful, but he cares.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing.
Superman's powerful, but doesn't care.
It's the
but
younger
we're told he
ones.
does.
Yes. Well, no, Superman's not even old in these movies.
No, he's not.
Yeah, Batman is really the only one other than obviously Wonder Woman.
Yeah. And he's not old, he's just experienced. That's what I'm saying about Batman. He's not old. He's not like this old dude.
I think he's a nice mix, and it's one of the best parts of Zack Snyder's movies here is that he's playing around in a sandbox that we grew up in, and he's getting to do all of these fun things that are fun to look at. Just imagine how much we would love Zack Snyder if he had just narratively pulled off these movies. Because he makes our characters look awesome.
Well, you could have dropped Wonder Woman from Batman Superman. That could have helped save time. You didn't need her. She was only looking after the photo anyways. That was her only goal, is she wanted to get this photo to keep her secret or whatever.
Yeah.
But we know she was around in the 80s everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure people got pictures of her there.
Now I feel like I need to do a call back to that episode. But yeah, no, the 80s were great for Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I would argue that you shouldn't be paying Kevin Costner or Russell Crowe beyond Man of Steel. I feel like he should have learned those lessons and they were done. And then he emerges from Man of Steel as the man he's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. Because if I wanted to see him continually learning from his father how to be Superman again, I'll just watch the first movie.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
And these movies are almost again, why I'm such a big fan of calling them Man of Steel, Superman 2 and Superman 3, is that it's almost just following an arc of Superman where he first gets his powers and he doesn't know what to make of it. The middle part where he's got his powers and he's doing his thing and he's a little cocky about it, and he has to make that sacrifice for him to finally become the Superman that we all know in Justice League. But that doesn't happen either, because Zack Snyder. He puts on a black suit and he just destroys this alien.
Well, he's so powerful. I think he's more powerful than even in the comics. I think he's pretty much God.
In this film, he is definitely God.
So there's probably no way to make another one because he's the answer to any issue. So Batman Superman ends. Superman's dead. So we go to Justice League, and what we get is Joss Whedon's Justice League is what comes after Wonder Woman. So did you watch Whedon's version?
I didn't, but I can still remember it.
Because I did. I just watched it in order. I mean, that came out. I mean, I didn't watch Suicide Squad again or anything like that, or Aquaman, but I did watch we watched Wonder Woman. So I watched Man of Steel, I watched Batman Superman. I knew that we had just watched Wonder Woman. So then I watched Justice League. Yeah, it's very colorful. Yes. It already feels Marvel-ish because the colors, are changed in order to make it a little more happy. And it's a little more funnier here at times. It starts with that horrible beginning, if you remember, where Superman is being interviewed by those kids.
I didn't mind it. It wasn't great, but I completely understand Whedon's logic now. He looked at those movies and was like, Superman kind of sucks. We need to fix Superman.
Well, see, he sucks in that this isn't what DC and Warner Brothers want anymore. Yeah. But he makes complete sense in Snyder's universe that he's been building with 2 movies so far. Yes. So we can't change him now. You just have to go forward. Be happy with the $800 million you're going to make, and I don't know, and then end it after there. Bring somebody else in to do another story. But to try to change things at this point, it's a thankless job. I don't blame Whedon. I don't think he sucked at this. I think he had 4 hours of footage basically, and was just like, oh Jesus, I gotta be me. I can't be Zack. I'm just gonna do what I do. So this is the way I'm going to put the movie together with what was already shot, basically. And then he had I think he reshot his own funny stuff, right?
I am not sure what was funny in that movie that wasn't in this movie. That's what surprised me.
Nothing.
Like, I feel like
every funny thing that he had said in Whedon's version wasn't in this movie. Maybe there's like I said one of the best lines in the Snyder cut is when Flash asks Bruce, what's your superpower? And he says, I'm rich. That's in Snyder's version.
Yeah. And then, the Flash talking about brunch, that was
that's not in the Snyder cut.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
He does not talk about brunch. No, he does not talk about brunch. I noticed that. That is gone. That joke's out of there. There's no race between Flash and Superman to end the movie.
Well, yeah, that was just garbage.
And then brunch is brought back, which is funny. I laughed at that. No, that's gone. Superman or Batman doesn't ask Aquaman if he talks to fish. That's gone.
They took out him sitting on the lasso.
The lasso, that's gone. Superman, when he's resurrected, he grabs Batman and then tosses him, and Batman is like, something's bleeding. Yes. That's gone. That's not in there.
Some of those were good.
You know what? Those were good, and I laughed at that stuff. But I was totally fine with him losing it too. Like, it's not that good. They're not so great. You had to leave them in. You know what I mean? The brunch thing. It's fine. It was fine the first time I heard it. Well, all I'm saying is that what Whedon did was take Snyder's long scenes and try to tie them together in a shorter amount of time. And I think he had to shoot maybe just a few things differently to shorten these scenes, and that's how he was able to pull in a 2-hour movie.
I'm really surprised how much of Snyder stuff is still in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, all of the PR hype of this was it, Snyder. Like, it was just so much PR.
Yeah, it was definitely Snyder's film with Whedon given like a Cliff's Notes, a little piece, like 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there in each of these scenes, just to tie them together a little easier. Like, that's all Whedon really did, I think, and add some jokes, and that was it. But it was pretty much Snyder's movie. That's why he's credited as director still.
They took out everything that I disliked from the theatrical cut. Batman's scene on the rooftop where he's hunting that bank robber to use him as bait for fear.
Gone. Yeah.
And then he just lets him go once the alien explodes into a pattern, because somehow that's a thing.
Do you think Whedon shot that whole thing?
Yeah, he had to have.
Because, I mean, it's not like Snyder had to put everything he made in, but
True.
It seems like he did.
It seems like he did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and really that scene that you just talked about seemed more like a Whedon thing than a Snyder thing. Snyder would have drawn that out. Snyder would have made that bigger than it was.
I think he would have had Batman killing that guy and throwing him
Possibly,
off the roof.
yeah. So Whedon was like, this is the part of the movie, this is what Snyder you're trying to say, but I need to say it in 3 minutes, not 7. So that's why we need to reshoot this way or whatever. That's why I think that's basically what he did. And like when they're all together and they're getting things explained to them, by they're at Wayne's Batcave and he's, trying to talk about what we do with the mother boxes. You could tell it was reshot in order to condense it down to the point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where they talk about resurrecting Superman and should we do it. Like that was real brief discussion in Whedon's version.
Yeah, just between him and Wonder Woman.
I think the other ones were involved, but everybody just had, like, the Flash had a funny line, and then that was pretty much it. Because he kept mentioning Pet Cemetery. I was like, that was out.
We might as well cut over to the Flash. We've mentioned him a bunch now. Best part of this movie, best part of the 2017 movie. Ezra Miller is just great. He's entertaining.
He's good.
You instantly empathize with him. And them adding back scenes, they're amazing. I love the Flash in here.
I think the whole dog store, whatever it was, pet store, like it was fine, but I didn't really add anything.
That was Iris. That was
I'm not familiar with Iris.
That's
I don't
his
know
girl.
Flash that well. Yeah,
because he's the original. He's the Barry Allen. Everything about that scene, him taking the hot dog, it was fantastic.
The hot dog was funny.
Yeah.
The hot dog was funny because I was just like, that's funny because he wants a snack. But then he gave it to the dogs, and I was like, that's funny too. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine. Scene's totally fine. But that was an ad that didn't really matter to me. Like, they could have lost that.
Oh, they totally could have lost it, but
Right.
It made Flash even better.
Because meeting him when he talks to his father at the prison works too, and then he goes home, and then Bruce is there. That's fine.
We've got these two elements, Bruce Wayne and the Flash, that work really well in these movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and everybody is aware of this after watching this, and that Ray Fisher's Cyborg is a way better character in this version. And not that he wasn't a good character in the other one, it's just that he was just kind of, it didn't really matter in the other one. Like, yeah, I mean, he had a role, but nobody cared about where he came from. But this one makes him into like it reminded me of Dr. Manhattan, basically, from Watchmen.
Yeah, like it's infinitely better, and Ray Fisher is a good actor. I hope
It's really good.
I hope that.
And his voice is amazing.
Yeah, he was good.
Such a deep voice. I really liked him. I really liked him in this movie. And now I see why. Like, I don't know if I'm on his side with this whole complaining about this and that, but I see how he has an axe to grind where it's just like, I was a big part of this movie and you totally cut me out. Like, what the fuck?
And
you know what I mean?
It's worth commenting. When this initially happened, it was like, oh, look, listen to this actor bitching and whining about his first movie where he didn't get artistic control over his character, and he was mad about it. But having a little time passed, and everybody's allowed to say and think stupid things until they learn.
Yeah.
Ever since Blues Brothers, the last episode,
Yeah.
It made me think a lot more about race in the film industry, and we talked about how it was really up to that executive in the studio who is going to not let a black actor succeed because he doesn't think he was marketable. Mm-hmm. And so Ray Fisher went on to say that Joss Whedon, with the support of the executives, cut his character because they didn't think the angry black man was marketable. I totally support that. He sounds like a pain in the ass, let's be clear. He sounds like a prima donna.
I don't know if I support that, only because the way I read it is that he was told by somebody who heard it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I'm big on context. And whoever said this or said something like it, I don't know what the context was. Sounds bad when you just say it. But maybe somebody was like a flippant, stupid comment, but it doesn't mean that was their strategy or some shit. I don't know his story, or I don't know the real story, but all I think is that, like any actor who is a part of a big movie and then sees his character whittled down by someone who clearly didn't understand, and that was Whedon, what Snyder had in mind, he's pissed. Yeah. So he takes it out. But this is just my opinion. I think he's in this era where he could play the race card on it. And I think he may have. And maybe I just don't think there's enough evidence to support that it was actually because of his race.
I see. It's so funny because I started with, he just sounds like a pain in the ass. I don't even care what he's saying.
Right.
But I've moved so much closer to if, and I'm just going to say if, because I will qualify it. If race and a black man not being marketable was the reason that his character was trimmed down, then I totally support him, and he should use his voice to call attention to inequality by studio executives. If it was anything else, then screw that guy. He sucks.
I don't know if I screw that guy. I think it was a bad story choice to cut him down. But if you were going to cut anybody, you weren't going to cut Superman, and you weren't going to cut Batman. Who are you going to cut? You're going to cut the Flash. You're going to cut Cyborg. You're going to cut... It's not who they are or what race they are. It's what their character is. You're going to cut the beep guys. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, they were tripping over themselves with characters they introduced that they didn't have to. And
right. You're not going to cut Steppenwolf. You need the two prominent guys, Batman, Superman, and the bad guy, and you're not cutting that stuff. You're cutting everything else to try to get the movie down for 4 hours. So again, I don't know the real story, but that's just what it seems like to me. But anyway, I hope he can get past this, and maybe this has brought some closure for him in his role as Cyborg. And I was like really impressed by this guy. Like now that I've finally been able to see more of his acting chops, I was like, damn, he's like right up there with Michael B. Jordan. I was really impressed with Ray Fisher. So I hope he has a big career.
I think his career is toast. After this nonstop barrage on social media. He just did it again like yesterday, I think. One thing I want to say is that, if there's a woman out there who wants to succeed, what's the word that describes her? She's kind of not bitchy. They use a word that they don't use for white men.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah,
right.
And the same way with a black man who is a famous actor. Oh, he's just kind of a pain in the ass. Like every actor is a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah, that's why they're actors.
Yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Like, they're all pains in the asses. You don't get to dislike what Ray Fisher's saying because you think he's a pain in the ass. I had to figure that out on my own. I'm just saying it to all of you now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Women are being difficult. That's
difficult.
The word. Difficult,
yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Everybody that's not white gets these labels, and it disguises the issue.
I thought you were going to bring up Blues Brothers for a bigger reason, which is that our Blues Brothers 2000 cab, Joe Morton, is in Justice League. We just got to see 2 Joe Morton films in a row. I was excited about that.
Yes, Joe Morton is in this movie for some fucking reason.
Not for some reason. He plays Cyborg's father. He's a big part. He even got a bigger role in this version too, and that's what I liked about it. And I mean, he didn't sacrifice himself or anything in the first movie.
It's true.
I don't think.
No, he did not. I think he lived, in fact.
I just think his story ended, and that was it. Like, they just cut away.
Yeah,
basically.
Like the Cyborg story was so much better.
Big time.
Yeah. His motivations were so good.
Well, like, it reminds me of like Whedon having to cut scenes down. Like, he, in his version, Joe Morton's his father goes home, and they just talk in the apartment, and Cyborg is like, he starts flying, and he's like, yeah, I couldn't do that yesterday. I'm learning how to do things every day, and like in the Snyder cut, he doesn't have to articulate that. We just see that over the course of the hour.
Yeah, they dropped the whole thing where his armor was Kryptonian. That was from Whedon.
Was it Krypton? Yeah, you may be right that it was some sort of Kryptonian or whatever.
Wonder Woman was good in this movie. I liked her. I always
liked
her.
And like we were able to journey with her to Greece for her when she actually went to the old ruins to see where the fire was burning, so that kind of thing. And then she goes down in the secret chamber, and we see how she learns about the mother boxes, which is something in the Whedon version she just went and told Bruce about them. Like she had that knowledge in her head already. So that was something.
And so, learns about the mother boxes. It's time that we talk about these supervillains.
Yeah.
This guy actually gets the most improved award for this movie. He gets a Dundie. Steppenwolf. What a terrible character in the 2017 version of the movie.
And maybe not a terrible, but just a forgettable. Like he's like every other villain that's forgettable. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just mush.
Just some dude that wants to take over the world.
Yeah.
That was it.
And now we have the uncle of, what's the name of the supervillain?
Darkseid.
I wanted to see if you were going to say it right.
I know it's spelled dark, like Dark Seed. People say Dark Seed, but it's Darkseid.
Yeah, I Googled it. Google confirmed to me that it's Darkseid. He's Darkseid's uncle, and he owes Darkseid, and he's in Darkseid's debt.
I didn't know he was Darkseid's uncle. That's funny.
Yeah, they say it in the movie. It's nuts. The Earth is like the one planet that Darkseid has not conquered. He tried once. He lost. So Steppenwolf's coming to Earth to get these mother boxes to take down the planet that Darkseid couldn't finish, and that will clear his name with Darkseid, and he can come home. But Steppenwolf's way better. So if Darkseid's supposed to be this big, powerful guy...
Yeah, he's Thanos, basically.
Yeah, and...
from Marvels.
Just to be clear, Darkseid came first. Thanos was a ripoff of Darkseid.
Was he really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, interesting.
Look. You're the one who confirmed this with me, because it's a Kirby
I just threw it out there, but I had never backed it up. I just gave you what I thought.
Sorry, the logic was correct.
Okay.
Darkseid came first.
Interesting.
They've got the bad CGI portal where the Justice League is looking through the portal at Darkseid, who's just sitting there, 5 feet away
it was
from
bad?
them.
I think it was bad.
The perspectives were off just enough where it was like he was looking into a hole.
Oh, okay.
And that was just weird. Anyway, why didn't he just walk over there and beat those guys up?
Well, you were saying the very end of the movie?
Yeah, when Darkseid could have just walked through that hole and
he
killed
couldn't
them.
defeat him. I think he was actually frightened. Like he realized he got defeated before by the gods of Earth, and he just had his uncle get sent back through in grand fashion, where Wonder Woman cuts his freaking head off.
Cuts his head
and
off.
His body slams on the ground, and all of them are standing there like, yeah, what are you gonna do? And Darkseid's just like, I gotta regroup. And then he's like, I felt that. Like I was just like, damn. Like and it was, for some humans, they're just like handing it to this guy, and he's actually unsure if he can defeat them. I think that was the message, and it came across to me at least.
And if you remember, in 2000, you remember, I didn't rewatch Joss Whedon's. I already said that, but no. In 2017's, they also imply that Steppenwolf is killed just by his own parademons. But they do it in that PG way of not showing any death.
Get off me. No.
Yeah.
Cut away. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Much better
That's
death.
right. I forgot about that.
And
there was a whole family in that version, do you remember? That was around the nuclear power plant and the cooling towers.
Yep.
And the Flash had to rescue them and stuff.
Completely pointless.
Yeah. But that's a Whedon thing. That's like him trying to bring humanity into something.
Yes.
But... in his world, it works, but in Snyder's universe, there's no place for that.
No,
it doesn't work in Snyder's vision. So it's too late to change it now, is what I keep saying. And you're already 2 movies into this.
It's pretty fair. That's why a Flashpoint movie is such a logical step for these guys to rebound and keep everything cohesive.
I guess. Are they going to do that?
Who knows?
Is that what the Flash thing's about?
Yeah, but apparently this Flash thing has been talked about for so long that there's no guarantee that it'll
I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. Aquaman was able to get his movie out, but I think that might be it as well. They might make a sequel. I don't know.
That made $1 zillion. I bet you that made more than Justice League. I have to look.
It was fun. I remember he's a fun guy, but I didn't really remember much of it.
And it's pretty well acclaimed, but I don't have any intention of watching it. Yeah, this movie cost $100 million less than Justice League and made $1.1 billion.
Damn.
Yeah. So
well, people like Jason Momoa, man.
yeah, they figured out a pretty winning strategy there.
He plays well around the world in different territories, I think.
I could see that. I mean, he's very likable.
What else do we like?
I like that this actually feels like a sequel to Batman vs. Superman. Just like Batman vs. Superman is a direct sequel of Man of Steel, we pick up Justice League with the ending of Batman vs. Superman, with Superman dying all over again. And you instantly feel like you're still in that moment, especially if you simply watch these movies back to back the way I did. So it's just such a more cohesive, solid story that I have a hard time not liking it.
It was that you were able to live in Snyder's universe better. And I wasn't separated by the years. And that's why I did appreciate Batman Superman more than I did originally. And also probably because it was the Ultimate Edition. So it helped. However, it's definitely problematic.
Yeah, just all over. But you know what? I don't care. Like, this is just fan service for the sake of fan service, and I'll take it. Zack Snyder's next movie is a zombie movie for Netflix, and it's a great premise. There has been a zombie outbreak in Nevada, and a team of robbers are going into Vegas to rob a vault hours before the government is going to nuke Vegas to take care of the zombie problem.
Wow.
So they're going to sneak in and get money that's going to get nuked anyway and then get out.
Yeah.
Like, it's this whole franchise that he wants to build under Netflix. And
you know what would make that even better? If it was like a Black Mirror episode. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that idea work great as an hour? Do we need a franchise with that idea? I can't deal with that idea for too long. I think that is a great Twilight Zone episode.
oh my God, that's so on point right there. Yes. God, that kind of describes Zack Snyder right there.
I don't know. You can't tell all this story in a short form. I think that's what we've realized with Snyder, is that
we saw it with Watchmen. He was, and I think I owned the Ultimate Edition of Watchmen.
I think I watched that one as well.
Yeah, and
it made it a little better for sure.
It does.
He was able to tell a little more story.
He was so damn literal. That was like almost a panel for panel remake of that fucking comic.
Yeah, I remember. I think I described it as cringy at times because like when they go, like, the comics amazing. You know, like everybody loves the comic.
Yeah, comics amazing.
And when like Dan Night Owl tries to have sex with what's her name, and then he's like, he can't get it up. You know, he's impotent, so he goes down and he's naked and he's just looking at his equipment and stuff at his old Night Owl cave. In the comic, it worked. Here's his naked ass. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
In the movie, everyone laughed in that scene, and it was not played for jokes. And I remember the whole theater, we all just cracked up. Because there's Patrick, what's his name? Patrick something. There's his naked ass. Like, and I'm just like, well, it's exactly the panel in the comic, but he should have took a little liberty and stepped away from the panels.
Yeah.
At times, you know.
There should have been
and
more.
And also dial down the action and stop making all those people look like superheroes, basically. They were like, she was doing jump kicks and they were moving through the air like humans are not able to do. And the reason the comic was a success is because these were real people.
What are you talking about? Zack Snyder's dedicated his entire career to making superheroes seem more like realistic characters with real flaws and motivations. Yeah.
Although I do think it made sense, the change that it was Dr. Manhattan was responsible instead of that big, you know, octopus thing.
You see, yeah, that's a nice little logical twist to the story. And yeah, you could have done that more. He's a bitch.
It's kind of like having Peter Parker's web shooters just come out of his arms instead of having to deal with him building web shooters. Makes sense for a movie, I thought.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, here's a tangent, but you know, it's still Snyder, so.
Yeah, it's a good tangent. So what's something, I'm going to name the best change to this movie, and I'm going to name the thing that bothers me the most that it hasn't changed. And then we're going to start wrapping up. My favorite thing that changed is they got rid of Booyah. And they almost completely eliminated My Man.
They had to leave one of them, though. I knew they were going to leave one.
I was so shocked when he said "my man."
Really?
Yes, because they had gone the whole movie. It wasn't until the very end.
I knew they were going to keep "my man" in,
And
because he also says "yeah," like when he's on the Batmobile, and they lost that, and then Booyah disappeared as well. Unless that's the same one, maybe I'm misremembering. But I was just like, he's going to say "my man." He's got to say one thing. It's still in character for Jason Momoa's version of Aquaman, especially if you watch his solo movie. It's within his character. It's just that it's kind of funny. So it was a little overboard in Whedon's version.
Yeah.
But I knew he had to keep at least one of them.
So he turned these all into real characters, Snyder did, which is nice. Didn't, at the end of the 2017 version, Batman had a suicide run where he was going to try to lead the army of the bugs away, and everybody's like, oh, he's going to go kill himself. Let's go help him. And then they all unite together to save Batman, and yeah, I'm glad they cut that
Something
too.
like that, yeah.
The most egregious thing that they did not cut from this movie is Aquaman surfing on the bad guy while falling out of the sky.
Again, I gotta say, they tamed it down.
They did.
They took out the Booyah.
They took out the Booyah.
It was no longer the White Stripes Icky Thump song that he comes out of the buildings chugging whiskey and then doing his slow-mo walk onto the... that was the White Stripes song, if you hear it. That got changed.
That was totally out of the movie, wasn't it?
Well, no, that whole scene is there, but it was a different music.
Oh.
Snyder is at least in, I don't know what music he listens to at home, but he seems to love Leonard Cohen, who's an old, 80s crooner, old 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s crooner. But, he's the guy who originally did Alleluia, and that's the version we hear in Watchmen. He just likes those slow singer, crooner kind of type song. I don't know. Almost like music that was at odds with what we're showing. But that's why he thought it worked, I guess. So... instead of him coming out to the White Stripes, he just came out to the slower song, still chugging whiskey, getting hit by the waves and stuff. Anyway, so that was a change, but it works.
A big change here is they lost at the end of this movie, and he combined the mother boxes, and the world was ending in time, or the Flash reversed time to change the outcome, which is right there laying the groundwork for the Flashpoint movie. Yeah. Which I feel like a few of these things are Snyder showing off and being like, this is what would have happened, everybody. Yeah. I'm just not sure. We haven't even talked about the terrible future.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I was fine with him it's in keeping with Snyder's universe in that everybody is too powerful for their own good. And the Flash, we literally met him this movie, and he already can do time travel. Holy crap. That's going to be an issue. But all right, but that's Snyder. That's his world. So I was reading online, and people were so angry with that scene. They thought it was just so, what's the word, superfluous or whatever. It didn't mean anything. It was just that trope. You go back in time and change things. It was so pointless. They could have ended it 10 minutes earlier if not for that bullshit. And I was fine with it. It showed that he could go back in time. He's fast. Yeah. Cool. All right.
At some point, he will try to go back in time to save his mom from dying, and he will literally trigger the end of the world.
You know what? As a good movie, I watched the Flashpoint Paradox. It's the DC animated version of the Flashpoint story.
And?
It was really good. Yeah. So if you haven't read the comic, you can watch that. It's basically the same thing.
When did you... I feel like I just did that too. It was either I was reading the comic or the cartoon, but he goes back and then all of a sudden his mom's there and he doesn't have his powers, and he's got to show Batman, who is Thomas Wayne, his yellow Flash suit.
Maybe did you watch the cartoon or did you read the comics?
I might have.
How come you do not remember?
I don't know. They're both cartoony. I think
I got the first issue of Flashpoint free on DC's app, so I read it, and I was like, that was good. So then I bought the other 3 or 4, or however many issues there were, and then I read that, and then I was perusing HBO Max, and I realized, and I was like, oh, they made an animated version. So I just watched that the other day, and it was good.
I think I just did the same thing, man.
Really?
Within the last 2 weeks, I think I did that on HBO Max.
Oh, nice.
Me and you, man. Me and you.
What do you know? I really liked Flashpoint. I don't know. I don't read a lot of Flash. I've hardly read any Flash in my life, and that was really good.
I just read the story where Barry Allen came back, and because it was written by the same guy who made the story about Hal Jordan coming back. And it was good. I like it. So we're gonna close out by talking about the dark future that Batman keeps seeing.
Well, you got to say what your favorite and your least favorite was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's fine, because this is my least favorite part of the movie. Is this to me was pointless. This whole I got it, and it tied in with Batman Superman, where he had that vision of a nightmarish future, but it's just telling us about this future that doesn't matter to us at all. Like, we're never gonna get there.
I mean, yeah.
So I just didn't know why I cared.
We are.
This just extended it.
It's nice. Like, I love living in this playland that he created for his fans, where it's like, this is what I would have done, and this is where we would have went, and Justice League Part 2 would have dealt with Darkseid and this dark, because I mean, basically he's just seeing the future where Darkseid comes, turns Superman to his side, and they conquer the Earth.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's exactly true. I think, are you familiar with, and this may just be a video game.
No, it's a comic series too.
Is it Injustice?
Yeah, because it does sound
about?
a lot like Injustice.
Now, I didn't know if Darkseid was responsible for like turning him evil, but it was definitely Lois Lane's death.
Yeah,
that turned Superman into a psycho.
Yeah, in Injustice, the Joker kills Lois Lane.
Oh, okay.
And Superman's like, dude, you could have killed him 100 times.
To Batman.
Right. I don't know if they literally have that, but Superman decides, okay, no more. If you're a bad guy, you're done. You're dead. And he gets half of the superheroes on his side, and they have this league where they kind of just take over the Earth. And Batman has to lead a underground resistance to stop Superman. And he stops him, and he's in a prison, in a Red Sun prison.
Yep.
And I haven't finished the Injustice 2 game. I never read Injustice 2 if it was a comic.
So it was originally a video game though.
I don't know which one came first, but the video game might have came first.
I think it was a video game, but I don't know.
Yeah. Video game was fun.
In this version, in Snyder Cut version, it's kind of mixing those together.
It feels like it, yes.
Because they want Darkseid's army to basically be Superman's army, is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that definitely seems like what it's looked like. Because they've got an image of Darkseid having his arm on Superman's shoulder. Like,
where was that?
Maybe just in the commercial?
Really? Like, they're buddies?
Yeah, like, I think the idea is that Superman, because when we're in that nightmarish future, we always got that Omega symbol on the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's how we know that Darkseid.
Yeah, that's Darkseid. That's
everything.
True. See, I would have said that Superman killed Darkseid and took over his army.
I mean, totally.
And that
possible.
was what led to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he'd bother with the Omega sign.
Well, maybe he already put it down there.
Okay, maybe he already did. Yeah.
What'd you think of having my least favorite Joker of all time?
It's fine. I mean, the whole thing's fine. I just was like, it's just a lot of talk, and it's just it just felt pointless.
Yeah, I mean, they added that. Like, I don't.
So that was like the prelude to the part that happened in Batman Superman. Like, that's what led to Batman Superman, the nightmare portion we saw in Batman Superman, basically.
Yeah. So
I feel like this was part 1, and that was part 2.
So here's my question for you. Why is Batman, Bruce Wayne, a normal human being, having visions?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
Does that have something to do with Martian Manhunter?
Maybe. But
there's another logic, because it's played by the guy who's the general or whatever in Man of Steel, right?
Yes.
And then he pops up in Batman Superman again, but he's like, he got a promotion, it looked like.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
So what did that mean? Has he always been Martha Wayne?
No.
Or Martha Kent, I mean.
He was simply going around, and I think the insinuation is that he was pushing for these people to come together for some reason, because Martian.
But he needed Lois Lane to do that?
I guess so. because he's convinced.
I really felt like it made no sense.
It made no sense at all. It was just adding him in for the cool factor. And the CGI was surprisingly bad.
Really?
Like,
I guess, yeah, I don't know.
When he switched from Martha over to him and then back to the general, like, it was jarring how weird he looked on screen. It felt just wrong.
I don't remember. I'm right in that it makes absolutely no sense that he would have always been, that general would have always been the Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, there's no reason for it.
Right?
No reason.
How would that have made any sense? I don't know.
Hey,
it's very weird.
do you know?
So when Lois is Superman and Lois went back to his farm. He just got raised from the dead. The mom comes because she called her, I guess. Shows up. In the Whedon's version, she makes it very clear that, I called your mom. She actually says that. I let her know. They don't worry about that in the Snyder Cut. So she's just like, Martha, I'm so glad you came and talked to me at the apartment the other day. And she's like, what are you talking about? I haven't seen you in months. And she's like, no, you were at the, like, did that happen? Like,
No.
So this guy's just parading as Martha Kent, and
I just think that one time, but yes.
I'm like, it just made, this is where Snyder didn't do this kind of thing in 300 and Man of Steel and Watchmen. He didn't have to add things in, and it was really like when we saw the Flash show up in Batman Superman trying to talk to Bruce as like this weird futuristic premonition. That was the moment where the movie turned for me, because I was just like, he's like beholden to like having to add these things in for like movies we haven't even seen yet. This is when he started to go off the rails.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm an alien secretly hiding on Earth, and I really care about truth and justice, but I'm going to sit back and do nothing while Superman commits 17 9/11s, Batman, Superman, and a Wonder Woman all fight a dangerous being, and I'm just on the sidelines. I have superpowers. I could help, hanging out, even though they've all revealed themselves. On and on and on and on. Oh, there's bad guys here. Maybe I could go help the people who are trying to stop the bad guys. No, I'm going to stay out of it again. I'm only going to get active and offer to help once it's all done.
Yeah.
He's the biggest asshole in the history of superhero assholes. Thank you, Zack Snyder, for making a cinematic asshole Martian Manhunter.
Couldn't he have just left him out? I mean, why did he put that in?
Could have left him out.
And I think that the Nightmare Future, he should have put that earlier in the movie and had Bruce kind of dream that up or something, right?
Yeah.
Then it would have felt like it fit a little better, but now it's just like an ending for no reason.
It's not much of a cliffhanger because it's a hypothetical future that might not exist.
But that's what Leto's Joker asked. He said, like, do you think on other timelines or something? Like, he had something like that, some question. Do you remember?
I didn't understand half of what he fucking said. It was the end of
I don't remember. That's what I'm saying. It was all a bunch of tropey superhero dialogue where they just face off with each other, and you don't remember any of it. It's all pointless.
And this movie actually has the same flaw that Justice League 2017 has, which is a few days after you've watched it, the plot completely fades from your head. It's starting to get funny.
Yeah, it's a long movie.
It is.
There's a lot to it. I mean, we only scratched the surface talking about it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff we missed and it'll haunt our dreams, but I'm okay with missing a couple things when it comes to this.
Yeah, and like we said off the top, I liked it. Like, I thought it was a good story because it finally got told the way a story should be told. It's just got extra stuff to it that, kind of gets in the way. But overall, it's a good film.
Yeah, overall, it's a really good film. It's indulgent in all the right ways, and it does the thing that's most important to me, which is tell a story that actually makes a little bit of damn sense. So I would actually recommend you subscribe to HBO, feed the corporate overlords, and watch this movie.
Then that leads me to my last question is, do you think this could jumpstart for him to make another movie in this universe and bring these people back? I mean, what if it's this huge hit streaming?
I could see it being a huge hit, but I could also see DC fans already being subscribers So I think while there's going to be gains, I don't think it's going to be the bump that Warner Brothers is looking for.
Is that the only way it makes money? Is that they get new subscribers? Is that how they make money?
Tangibly, yes. Intangibly, they care about how much advertising and word of mouth this gets us, because that's worth real dollars if you think about it. They also count building brand awareness of their product as a benefit, even though it's silly.
Yeah, but I don't see, like, I used to work in broadcasting, and you get other companies to pay you to promote them during commercial breaks. So they'll have people buy their product, but they already paid you, however many thousands of dollars, because you can say this many viewers watches our station, and therefore this will get you this kind of monetary, money coming in.
Oh, brother.
But with streaming, the way I see it is they're only promoting themselves all the time. So who's paying them? I don't know. I don't understand any of this.
All right. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
HBO Max is sold to subscribers. Do you know who gets HBO Max at a discounted rate? They did. They might not still, but for the sake of the argument, stay with me, audience.
Does this have something to do with like package deals or something with DirecTV or something like that?
Well, with AT&T. So AT&T cellular customers, they can get HBO cheaper. But they're not. HBO, the division, isn't just handing out free subscriptions to the AT&T division. The AT&T division is actually paying HBO for the subscriptions that AT&T is giving away. So that
there you go. Well, so there you go. That's the similar thing. Yeah. Okay.
So it's further, because HBO Warner Brothers is a separate entity under the same company, and they are selling their copy of Justice League to HBO Max to distribute. So HBO Max is now paying Warner Brothers for the distribution rights for Justice League, and then. They do this weird shell game.
It's this huge cycle.
Yeah, where they're just paying each other, and it's so skewed and stupid. And then AT&T used to just offer free internet for people who watched HBO Max. It didn't count against AT&T's data cap. And how that worked is HBO Max paid AT&T for that free data they were giving them. They just swap money back and forth and pay each other for services. It made me think of the television ad thing. Yeah.
Well, we are down the rabbit hole with this one.
Oh.
Well, that's nice though, because I just don't, Netflix never gives away their numbers.
Yeah.
So it's I don't have any understanding. And I was never a salesperson. I always worked in news and then the creative promotional part. But I always had some understanding about this is how a station makes money. I get it, and I'm looking at streaming and I'm just I don't know what does it matter who watches Snyder's Justice League? How does HBO make money off this? What are they promoting? I don't understand.
Wonder Woman was such a big hit. Well, no, that happened later. Because what did they do? They greenlit Zack Snyder in October? And then Wonder Woman came out in December. So yeah, never mind.
So was 84 a hit?
It was a hit for the HBO Max. Money? Yeah, they saw a huge bump.
Well, that's good.
But 30 days later, they often see a huge decrease with subscribers quitting. It's super interesting, the reporting on streaming.
Well, you got to keep the content flowing then to keep them on, They could be in the new... they could continue to be in the Snyder business if... This is huge. What if it's huge, And they're just we'll put up $200 million to make another Justice League movie or something. But maybe it doesn't have to be Justice League. Maybe it could just be something else. See, that's the thing. He makes Man of Steel, so we're all assuming there's a Man of Steel 2 coming. But no, he pivots and makes Batman, Superman, Dawn of Justice. So then we're just what after that? Well, there's no sequel. They're not going to say Batman versus Superman 2. So then the next thing is Justice League. But the next thing after that could always be Flashpoint or whatever. You know what I mean? It could just be whatever logical thing is next in the Snyderverse.
Yeah, and that would be fine. If this is a big hit, we will know within 30 days. HBO is going to throw it all over the place that they crushed it. If it's not a huge hit, we are not going to hear it about it until AT&T's next Investor Day, when they lay out the new subscriber numbers. So it'll be funny.
But if anything, Snyder can just say, I mean, I'm sure he feels like he was able to finish this thing and he can move on. And I think that's cool.
And I feel like some of these things in this movie where he sets up sequels, like, I feel like that was kind of an FU to Warner. Like, I feel like...
I don't know if it was an FU. I feel like he just wanted to put everything in. So it's just like, this is what I intended, so here it is. I'm never going to make another one, so here it is. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it. Maybe even some of these were like, we were talking about Blade Runner 2049, when you were like, did you watch the other shorts? Maybe some of this stuff was supposed to be like short films, never came to fruition in the way he expected it to.
Yeah?
Think of it that way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe all that futuristic stuff should have just been a short film, or was just going to be a short film you could have watched.
God, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Because I could imagine that, and it'd be cool, but it'd also be really weird, a lot like Blade Runner.
And Leto just left one studio and got makeup for the next one because he was shooting the other short film for Blade Runner. And then he was just going to go over and do this one. That was the plan the whole time.
Oh.
Anyway,
God, Leto.
Well, that's all I got about it.
So yeah, one closing thought, and
Yep.
that's never say never. So if in 30 days this has been a huge hit, we already have the president of Warner Media saying we are done with the Snyder Cut. This closes out his trilogy and we're moving on with our new projects. And then saying that we're not going to get the director's cut for Suicide Squad. And that's obviously because we have a good Suicide Squad coming from James Gunn. But 30 days from now, they've made $100 million off of this thing. I see them changing their minds and doing something stupid.
It's just up to them. It's the never say never, you know? That's just what it is.
All right, I want to close this out because we've been talking forever, everybody. I shared on Twitter recently a story about the quote-unquote first Snyder Cut. Did you see that at all? You don't get on Twitter much, so it's fine.
No, I don't. I don't know. You tweet a lot, so I
not that
only
much.
catch some things. Well, you have recently, at least with Snyder.
I know. I've been tweeting a lot
Snyder
about
cut.
Justice League, and hopefully this will be the end of it. But the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did.
Like,
but I've already seen that. But haven't they already put that out? It was a DVD.
I just didn't. Yeah, the Donner cut is the only cut of Superman 2 that I own. And I didn't know any of the history. They were shooting Superman and Superman 2 back to back.
Yeah, together.
Had no idea.
Well, because you see Zod and his two partners in Superman getting sent to the Phantom Zone in the very first movie. That's like the very first part with Marlon Brando. Yeah. So it's like they had it all in line. It made sense to me.
Richard Lester.
He did direct Hard Day's Night.
Yep, Hard Day's Night.
The Beatles movie.
He did Help.
I know that much.
He did The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers, which is actually a sequel I want to cover. He did another really big one. And he also did Butch and Sundance The Early Days. What is that?
Yeah.
He did Superman
just
2,
some
Superman 3.
years after the sequel where you can't bring any of the original cast back.
The Return of the Musketeers. He has a Three Musketeers trilogy.
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting.
We should cover that. You know what I came upon? I was looking at Jack Nicholson's filmography, and he was in The Evening Star, which is a movie that came out in the 90s, sequel to Terms of Endearment.
Yes.
Which I've never seen.
I've never seen
So
that
I put that on the list. I'm like, we are watching The Evening Star, and we're going to talk about Terms of Endearment.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, because, we cover superhero movies. So every once in a while, you got to jump out there. And
That's right. Anyway, everybody should read about the history of Superman 2 and the fan campaign to bring back a Richard Donner cut of the film. And it's really interesting. And
I'll probably will read it because I like stuff like that.
Marlon Brando was suing the studio for defamation or something.
Wow.
And so he was cut from Superman 2 and all sorts of just craziness. Well, anyway, that just about wraps it up, I guess. I'm Justin.
I'm Aaron.
And thanks for listening to our podcast. Feel free to follow us on Twitter. We're at Aaron and Justin. And give us a review if your podcast app supports it. We could use all the love. Have a great night.
All right, see you.